Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Salma, and I'm happy to be here with you guys today as we are going to be discussing the food insecurity crisis that is currently going on in Rhode Island college campuses and universities. So, starting off, in the state of Rhode Island, according to the Rhode Island Community Food Bank, 38% of Rhode Islanders are food insecure, with 27% of this population being its college students. Now, the reasons for food insecurity can vary. Food insecurity, most of the time, can stem from financial issues. A lot of people attend school full-time while they also need to work full-time to afford their tuition and bills. The instability with this comes with the fact that the average cost of colleges within the state of Rhode Island can range from $30,000 to $60,000, depending on a student's campus living situation. Now, the federal Pell Grant helps many students cover the cost, but in most cases, many students aren't able to pay for college entirely just on a Pell Grant. And I want to bring to you this quote by Jackie Springer. She's the Assistant Dean of Support Services at the University of Rhode Island. She says, "Gone are the days when an in-state 4-year school can be paid for with a scholarship or grant. Food, shelter, books, internet access, those are things that cannot be covered by some scholarship or grant." Now, this leaves a lot of students battling between saving money to cover the cost of school tuition or providing themselves with 3 meals a day. And I want to also bring up the fact that in the state of Rhode Island, the minimum wage is only $15 an hour. Now, compare this to what I mentioned earlier about the range of cost when it comes to colleges in the state. It's a lot of money. Now, when it comes to food on college campuses, a lot of college campuses offer many options, but the majority of these options on campus or around campus tend to be fast food options, right? And fast food typically really isn't healthy for the average person. For example, at the University of Rhode Island, a lot of the food options around campus are items such as Dunkin' Donuts, Insomnia cookies. These are options that, while they do offer, lower cost meals, they're not necessarily healthy. There's a lot of sugar in Insomnia cookies, things like Dunkin' Donuts. These are not nutritional meals. Brown University is another one. Brown University is located around Thayer Street. Now, Thayer Street's a very popular tourist destination in the state of Rhode Island. A lot of food areas around there. But Thayer Street can also be really expensive because it's a tourist area. And Thayer Street restaurants are also typically not very nutritional. You have Baja's Taqueria, you have Shake Shack, you have many boba tea places, and these are, again, fast food options and typically not very healthy for students. And the big question is, well, why is this an issue? What does food insecurity do for the human body? Well, the food insecurity can have some pretty damaging long-term effects on a student's body. Now, mentally, being food insecure can cause a lot of mental stress on you because it can trigger anxiety and depression as you're working through your studying while also not really getting any food in your system. This is going to disturb your performance in classes, and it might even cause a student to drop out altogether. Long-term, physically, food insecurity can cause diet-related diabetes. A lot of people don't understand that just because you're not eating doesn't mean you won't get diabetes. Typically, when we think of diabetes, we think of consuming too much sugar and in turn, getting something like diabetes, having really high blood sugar, poor diet. But this can occur even when you are not getting enough food in your body. Heart disease, that's another thing that you can get in the long term for having food insecurity. Now, a lot of these issues, such as diet-related diabetes and heart disease, later on down the line, it's going to cost so much more to take care of these long-term effects with medications and prescriptions than it will to have fed yourself meals in the meantime to prevent it. But like I said earlier, a lot of people can't afford it because the cost is really high. Now, I wanted to welcome you guys. I have a guest with me, and she goes by the name Kate Balistracci. She is the Assistant Program Manager for the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program and the SNAP Ed program at the University of Rhode Island. Her work focuses on bringing education about SNAP benefits and the program as a whole towards college-age students, but also providing nutrition programs to give children ages 5 to 18 with limited resources meals. Thank you, Kate, and here is our interview. First I wanted to tell you what my project was about. So right now I'm in a class called Public Writing. It's Writing 303. And we're each doing a semester long project on an issue in Rhode Island. And me personally, I picked food insecurity on college campuses.
Hmm.
Especially in this moment in time, I know there's been a lot of conversation about SNAP, and so I
Hmm.
thought that would be an interesting topic of focus this semester.
Hmm.
And I've had multiple friends on campus who've dealt with having issues finding meals on campus or affording meals on campus. So I think for me, this was a project that I felt was more personal as well and wanted to work on it for the semester. Um,
Hmm.
and I saw your bio on the community nutrition education page and how you focus on SNAP and the and EP. And I thought it would be interesting to get your perspective on food insecurity. And since you have a little more insight about the field as well, I thought you'd be a great choice.
Okay, well, yeah, sure. I'm happy to chat with you. Thank you.
Is it okay if you give a brief introduction to what you do first?
Absolutely, sure. So I am the program manager for the SNAP-Ed Nutrition Education Program in Rhode Island. SNAP-Ed is a national program that provides nutrition education to those experiencing low income. They don't have to be on SNAP. They would just be someone who would be eligible for SNAP based on their income. This national effort has actually been defunded. It was defunded in HR1, the One Big Beautiful Bill. So we are currently still working on last year's funds and using those up, and then this program will be dissolving. And nationally, programs ended September 30th, or they're doing the same as us, and slowly sunsetting as their funds expire. But nutrition, SNAP-Ed Nutrition Education, we provide nutrition ed to anyone from preschoolers, school-age youth, adults in job training, parents, older adults at congregate meal sites. We go to food pantries. We are at farmers markets. We go to summer camps. We're an after-school program. So kind of in various settings throughout the state with all different age audiences. We typically do series programming where we'll go for probably 4 weeks, once a week for 4 weeks or something like that, and build upon the previous lesson. The lessons are interactive. They have recipe demonstrations of low-cost healthy recipes that we have created and are on our website, for people to try, especially with kids. It's something like, if there's a parent-kid program, it's important for the kids to try it before the parents are willing to even buy those ingredients, because you don't want to waste your money on something that kids won't eat. So we do a lot of that. We also do one-time programs at food pantries where we have recipe demonstrations to help the patrons maybe come up with recipes of what they can make based on what they're receiving at the food pantry. So we also do work with community partners, and work with what we call policy system and environmental work, PSE work. And that is kind of helping to make that healthy choice the easier choice, because you're not always there to do the nutrition education, so you kind of have to make it more sustainable. So at a food pantry, that might be signage to help steer people in healthy directions or healthy choices, or helping food pantries set up their pantry so it's kind of easy to access the healthy foods and things like that. We work with wellness committees to help instill policies on healthy choices at schools. We work with congregate meal sites to add healthy choices to their menus, things like that. And do a lot of professional development training for our community partners to help kind of extend that learning. So it's more like a train the trainer model. So that's kind of the other aspect of what we do. And then we have a social marketing, social media, but that is sunsetted down. We're not doing that anymore.
Thank you. So you mentioned educating people on low cost healthy meals. Actually, I
Mhm.
wanted to talk about that a little bit more because there's various reasons why people could be suffering from food insecurity, and I know a lot of the times it can be the cost of food. Um,
Mhm.
Suffering from food insecurity, how does that affect a person's future, mentally, physically? Why is it um why is it a problem that everybody should care about and not just an individual person? Because I think a lot of people, when we talk about food insecurity, they see it as a issue that doesn't affect them personally, but it might affect somebody else. How is this a problem that we all should be caring about and not just an individual?
Yeah, great question. So food insecurity sometimes isn't something you can see and you don't realize. So a family might be suffering through food insecurity, or an individual maybe, and it's not something that's immediately apparent, but they might be deciding if they can pay their electric bill or their heating bill or buy food for themselves or their family. And that is very detrimental. Obviously it puts them into a situation of crisis in terms of having debt and bills and whatnot, and not being able to pay them. But also, if people don't have enough food and sustenance for themselves, you can't function well. If anyone, has ever experienced not being able to eat for whatever reason, you're just not functioning at your highest capacity. So for students, they have a hard time concentrating in school, and they might be having outbursts. And, if it's instability in the home, that might be challenging for them to be functioning well in school. For adults, excuse me, for adults, they might be going through a day and they're really hungry and it's really hard to focus, or they're sacrificing their own food for the rest of their family, and so they're making those hard decisions that are really challenging. There's also nutrition security. So it's great, if people can get food, but is it food that they actually eat, right? So some people may not eat certain foods due to dietary preference or dietary need or religious reasons and that sort of thing. So nutrition security is really important too, because they should be getting healthy food that they can eat, and want to eat as well. So that's another factor in food security.
Thank you. So I actually wanted to go back. You said that you guys ended up getting defunded.
Mhm.
I know recently we did have a pretty long government shutdown, and it did affect the SNAP program towards the beginning of this month, and a lot of people had their SNAP on pause or were unable to receive it. Um, Going forward, I know the shutdown has ended. What's the importance of people being able to receive their program benefits such as SNAP, and how something like this, a pause, could affect us going forward, and organizations like yours you mentioned got defunded. What are the plans to go forward when something like that happens?
Yeah, so we're a separate when we got cut for SNAP Ed, that didn't mean that SNAP got cut.
Hmm.
We are two separate funding streams,
Hmm.
but so in terms of the government shutdown, right, that holding out benefits for the month of November was really troublesome for many people, and it was amazing to see Rhode Island and countrywide, but for Rhode Island, really rally and having a lot of food drives and really picking it up and really helping the food bank. There were a lot of grants that went out to help food pantries and the food bank get more healthy options in to distribute to food pantries. The Boys and Girl Scouts, they did a big food drive and they were distributing to pantries. So it was a really amazing effort to help fill that gap as best they could. Now, what happens is now we get funding and people receive their SNAP benefits. If it happens again, is the community going to be able to rally again as much? How many times are they willing to do that? There's so many pressing needs. So it becomes a matter of, how many times can you try to really do that? And people step up and it's wonderful, but they shouldn't be, because people should be receiving their benefits. And it's really disruptive to the families and the households who receive the SNAP benefits because, all of a sudden what they rely on at the beginning of the month is not there. And so there's a bit of a panic, right? You don't know where your next meal is coming from or how you're going to purchase food, and, afraid that the food pantries are going to run out of food. So there's a lot of factors that would come into play. So luckily, people did receive their full November benefits, and December is also fine for people to receive their benefits. And then should be January too, I believe, because I think the next potential shutdown is the end of January if they don't come to an agreement on the budget. So, that looming what if is still out there. As for SNAP Ed, what's happening with the program sunsetting, there's we have been talking to other community partners to see how we can, if you work with food pantries, would you like to take on some of the nutrition ed, trying to talk to the state entities to see if there's any way to kind of take on some of the things that SNAP Ed has been doing, but ultimately there'll be a gap, unfortunately, because there's no funding and no one entity kind of does what we do already, so it'd be piecing it together.
Right. Thank you. You touched a little bit upon how the local community came to help everyone um during the shutdown. I actually wanted to touch a little bit more upon that. Um, I wanted to touch upon what are the best things locally we can do to combat food insecurity, especially when it comes to college campuses. There are a couple different options. I know at URI we have the Rhody Outpost and
Mhm,
the Free Farmers Market,
mhm,
but there are issues with those where some days they're not available, or some seasons. I know the farmers market is closed in the spring. Um,
mhm.
but what are some of the best local options that people have to support themselves, and how can people actually help reach out to each other locally to help those in need?
Absolutely. So yeah, you touch on two very important ones. Rhody Outpost is an excellent source for the URI campus. Close by, you also have the Johnny Cake Center, which is another food pantry in the South County area, and they are a wonderful resource as well. I know some people don't have cars, and that's challenging. The Free Farmers Market is amazing. But yes, that is seasonal. I know it only runs in the fall. So the other thing that I think is just, aside from, where people can access food as food pantries or trying to do their best with like money saving tips. So, if people are on SNAP, for example, right now they can go to Stop and Shops and Walmarts, and for every dollar they spend on fresh produce, they get 50 cents back on their card to use for any other SNAP item, up to $25 in a month. So different incentives like that, sometimes you can make your money stretch a little bit further. Or if there's any money saving tips, such as, coupons or double savings, or, at the farmers markets in the summertime, they have double bucks where, again, you go and you spend $1 of SNAP and you get $2 to use for produce. So there's different things like that. But a lot of times people don't know about those options. And so they're not utilizing their benefits to their maximum. And those are people on SNAP. Not everyone is on SNAP. Not everyone is able to be on SNAP. So otherwise, it's trying to be thrifty with your own money. And that comes down to like coupons, maybe bulk buying if you can, looking at the unit pricing, that sort of thing, seeing where you can kind of make your money stretch as best as possible.
All right, thank you. And I guess my last question will be, um, for food insecurity, what do you think needs to be worked on? I guess on a higher and on a systemic level. I know we have solutions that we can do on a local level, but going forward in the future, what do you think needs to change systemically to combat something like this?
Um, Probably a higher minimum wage would be very helpful. And having access to more jobs that allow for that, to be able to make enough to then either not be on SNAP and to be able to afford the food they need, or to help supplement that sort of thing. So that's one thing. They continue to have job job training to help people advance if they don't, if they're not able to have a college degree and that sort of thing. So there are those which to help get jobs, but probably that would be one thing. And even just statewide, having a more cohesive food access initiative would be important to kind of be seamless when these emergencies come up, so that and like emergencies that could have been like COVID or this recent shutdown, things like that, to help kind of put things into place so that action can be taken straight away.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate this interview a lot.
You're welcome. I hope I answered all your questions.
I once again wanted to thank Ms. Balistracci for sitting down and talking with me. As Ms. Balistracci had mentioned, there are many local resources in the state of Rhode Island that work towards temporary solutions for students feeling the issue of food insecurity and experiencing the crisis. Now, what needs to be done to permanently fix the issue of food insecurity is changes on the state and federal level. Ms. Balistracci had mentioned minimum wage and how $15 an hour is simply not enough for college students looking to afford food while also attending and paying for school. Additionally, when it comes to federal resources such as SNAP, after the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill in July of 2025, SNAP is on track to lose 20% of its federal funding through 2034. So, looking at this, we need to see change on a federal level. We need our state representatives to pay attention to the issue of food insecurity. We need them to introduce and vote for bills that will help not only local organizations that are federally funded, but also to pass bills to restore funding towards programs like SNAP that help students, hundreds of students across the state. Lastly, it's also the universities and colleges' job to bring more funding towards things like free meals for students. Many universities make a lot of money, and it would only be right that this money starts going more towards the well-being of the students who maybe can't balance things out while attending such expensive universities. I wanted to thank all of you for viewing, all of you for watching, all of you for hearing. I hope after this you can take away the importance of food insecurity, not only as an individual, but looking at the greater picture of how it affects millions of Americans, especially Americans who are on track to take over the economy in the future. It's only right that they have meals too.